From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Tiger Cats Game Day with Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly.
Welcome to Tiger Cats Game Day, presented by Tiffany Gate Fresh Gourmet on the Ticats Audio Network. It's Week 12, Game 10 for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They are in BC tonight to take on the BC Lions, who are 7-3, 4-0 at home. 7 p.m. kickoff at BC Place, and joined, as always, by my co-pilot, my right-hand man, Mike Daly. Mike, this one is coming after a really tough game for the Ticats. They lost to Edmonton, looking to rebound against a team that is not going to let up or give them an easy one by any stretch of the imagination. How do the Ticats fans need to think about this game and what we're about to see tonight?
Yeah, well, I mean, even to stack on, the loss from last week in Edmonton, that tough one where, you really hope you don't lose to a team that's at the bottom of the league there. But now they got to travel out west, right, to BC and Court. You and I have been there before. It's not the easiest trip in the world. I mean, luckily the game's early enough, so it's really 7 o'clock local time for us. So that'll help a little bit. But no matter what, you spend long enough on an airplane flying over there and then have to kind of coordinate yourself with the hotel, what you're going to eat. But from what you remember, right, why were those games so hard? Was it because you were just on a flight for 3 hours? Was it the jet lag? Was it because BC Place is as humid as can be? Like, what is that, and why does that become so difficult to travel out there?
I think there's all of the above. The time difference, you end up waiting around a long time, which is something on a game day I would used to just love to get right to it. But also, those could be really convenient excuses, because there's a lot of games that we played in, Mike, that went down to the wire and were really close, and maybe we were a couple plays away from winning. And I don't know if it's necessarily that the barometric pressure was the blame for why we didn't walk away with those W's and those close ones that ended up on the wrong side of. So I think it's tough. It's obviously you're going 3 time zones back, and your body has to adjust to that. And I think that's why the Ticats went out an extra day early this time around. But it remains to be seen if any of those things will be a factor tonight, because the worst thing that you can have for an opponent, and I'm talking from the perspective of BC, is an opponent who has really nothing to lose. They're backed in a corner, back against the wall. These guys have pride. They are professional athletes that show up every single day and work as hard as the next guy. And when you're backed up, back against the wall, that's when you're most dangerous. And I expect the Ticats to come out tonight firing, because they've got something to prove, not to anybody else, but really to themselves. And I think that's what we're going to see, and that will be the storyline tonight. So let's crack this one open and start to look at who we're going to see. Not too much has changed. One thing of note, we are going to see Terry Godwin back in the lineup for this Ticats offense. And I think he is going to be an impact player to watch, because he's had consistency over this season. He's got reliable hands. He runs great routes. He creates opportunities for this offense to convert on second down, because he actually is one of those guys who could do the intermediate, the short, and the deep stuff. So how do you see Terry Godwin's return to this lineup making an impact, and who else is in this Ticats offense that we need to know about?
Yeah, I think Terry Godwin is exactly that, right? He is that one of those deep threats that, on the outside, he's going to be able to hopefully open up this Ticats offense where Taylor Powell can now look and take a shot, right? Obviously, he's got Tim White that's able to blow the top off, get over top of some coverage and really stretch that defense. But kind of everybody else that's there, like the Tyreek McAllister, he's more of that yak yards, right? Catch the ball short and make a couple people miss. Duke Williams, big body, he's been showing that he can go over the middle and catch those intermediate passes right between the linebackers, whatever it is, and take a shot. So to be able to have 2 guys, and one being Terry Godwin added in with Tim White, that can kind of blow the top off it. It makes defenders a little bit uneasy, right? You got to make sure you're playing a little bit more safe, and especially with this BC defense, who has been playing very well in the back end, right? Terry Godwin is going to see Gary Peters, who's, is a good corner around here, right? He's been around the league for a while. He's made a ton of plays. So it'll be nice to see Terry put a good game together, as well as this Ticats offense against, one of the better defenses in the league. And Court, like just to go back on your point where you get backed in the corner, right? And we've all been there where it's almost like with the Edmonton loss, there's like an embarrassment with it, right? And, you know, anybody can win in the league at any time. Like you said, there's good players on every single team. But I know internally in that Ticats locker room, coaches, players, it's like, how did we let that one slip away, right? A team like that. So always check for, as soon as that happens, it's kind of a reality check for everybody there. And, you know, this BC is going to be a really good test for them to come back out and say, okay, we still got some fight left in us. Let's give it to one of the better teams in the league here.
Absolutely. Taylor Powell, excited to see what he can build on after having a couple more starts under his belt. He's got something to prove as well. I know he's a guy who plays with a lot of confidence, but we're still waiting to see those guys get into the end zone. I think the multi-touchdown games are on the horizon. And with this lineup of receivers that are there, with the offensive line that is together, if the offensive line can figure it out to make sure that Taylor Powell stays upright and has the opportunity to not just necessarily score touchdowns on explosive plays, because, you know, when you live by it, you tend to die by it. And that's been the case as of late. I think they just need to convert second downs, and guys like Duke Williams, guys like Terry Godwin, those, even Keandre Smith, really, those are the guys who I think help you sustain drives, keep your defense off the field, and get you within striking distance. Because then when you got a guy like James Butler back there, anything can happen. Pitch it to him sideways. That counts as a pass, folks. And you can get into that touchdown column in terms of passing. Taylor Powell, that's a tip. You can take that to the bank. If it comes through, you could tell him that I told you to do that. Let's talk about the defense now. We've got one change over there. Will Sunderland's coming in. Lawrence Woods III is coming out of the lineup. Now, Will is going to be the designated American. He plays corner. He's tall. He wears the deuce. So you know that I like this guy. He's rangy. He has long arms, and he can play in that defensive backfield. But him coming into this lineup, I think, could be a signal that, hey, we want to see something from our defensive backs. And if there isn't that thing, we're going to make some changes so that everybody who is in our roster will have an opportunity to make their play. What are you thinking about with the lack of changes, really? There's only two guys going in and out of this roster. What does that mean? Or does it mean anything?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because, I mean, there's just still so much out there on the field, like giving up 160 yards rushing last game. Like, that's just kind of unheard of, right? From this Ticats defense, from when you look at who's out there, like with the Casey Sales, Dylan Wynn, Ted Laurent, right? Simone, right? Jameer Thurman. You're just kind of like, how's that happening? Right? It's just one of those like kind of head scratchers a little bit. So yeah, having Will Sunderland come in, maybe that's one of those things where, you know, we know BC's going to air it out. Right? They're first in the league in passing. Of course they're going to air it out, right? Like it's all they do. So maybe it's one of these, you know, kind of being like real close as that backup. Like, hey, just so you guys know, there is somebody else sitting here waiting to get in and waiting to be able to play. I don't know if that's really the right way to go with it in terms of the pressure on it, but something's got to change, because everybody is going to look at this offense and say, okay, offense, like let's get going, which rightfully so, they need to get in the end zone. But last week against, you know, and I'll keep bringing up the Edmonton game just because it was so recent, 30% on second down conversion getting off the field for the Ticats, right? And I'll tell you what, Corey, you brought this to my attention right before we started talking about the show, but 12 of the last 14 games, the team that wins the second down conversion is going to win the game, right? And that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, because that's how you keep drives going. That's how you get closer to the end zone. That's how you're able to put the ball in the end zone or kick some field goals and get some points. It's just they need to be better on second down, right? There's no question about it, right? So it is a head scratcher, but it will be, like you said, Will Sunderland coming in this test at BC as throwing the ball. It's going to be a good one.
And convert on second down as an offense for BC, that they've got a lot of guys who can help them do it. Of course, they've got Lucky Whitehead, they've got Hatcher, Hollins, Katoy, Vernon Adams. there's a spread of weapons. Vernon can get outside the pocket and extend plays, give guys like Lucky Whitehead a chance to break coverage and get loose. Hollins, Katoy, these are all very serviceable receivers. So there's not going to be a chance to fall asleep at the wheel for anybody, even if it's second and long, meaning second and 10, 11, 12, 15, 16, 17. Those are the ones that are most dangerous because a conversion on second and long is not only demoralizing, but it often changes the zone of the field that you're playing in. You might be going from negative territory across the center field line into plus territory, or from outside of field goal range into field goal range with a conversion like that. So it's important, it's imperative, it is mandatory that the Ticats lock up these receivers and get off of the field. They've got an offensive line there that isn't going to be one to sleep on either. So the Ticats defensive line will have their hands full with the likes of Suk Chung and Couture there on the interior. But I like the matchup. I think that there is potential there for this Ticats D to make some plays. And looking at the BCD, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not afraid of any of these characters over there. You've got the veteran TJ Lee. He's like a savvy guy who's been around the league for a long time. And if you fall asleep at the wheel or you throw out a lazy pass late out into the flat, he's a guy who can take advantage of that. But really, if you do your thing as a Ticats offense and a Ticats defense, I have faith. Like, we have the guys. We have the guys, and we should be able to pull this one out. When you look at this BC team, offense or defense, who are the folks that jump off of the page to you, and who are the ones that you're game planning for, whether you're, on the offensive side or the defensive side?
Yeah, let me start with the offensive side for BC, right? You look at a guy like Keon Hatcher. He's one of the best receivers in the league right now, right? Making a ton of plays, past 2 games, 15 receptions, 2 touchdowns. He's kind of Vernon Adams' go-to guy, right? The nice thing about this, so when you look at game planning this offense, is they're last rushing the ball. They're dead last, right? So we talk about this all the time, Court. It's make them do something they're not good at. So now what that does for Mark Washington and the Ticats defense, it says, okay, well, listen, I know we've been struggling a little bit against the run as of late, but let's see if BC can do it, right? Because that's not what they want to do. They want to air the ball out. They throw deep, over double anybody in the league right now. They're double the attempts of any other team in the league throwing it deep, right? So that means they're just taking shots after shots. And that's the way Vernon Adams plays, right? He'll buy himself a little time back there. If he sees a one-on-one matchup, he's putting that thing up there. So expect the Ticats defense to say, you know what? If they're going to run the ball on us and get a little bit of success, we'll give that up because we're not going to let BC do what BC wants to do, air this thing out to Keon Hatcher, Lucky Whitehead, all the people you were talking about. We're just not going to let that happen. So I'm kind of expecting Ticats to, maybe go back to that old rush 3, maybe spy Vernon a little bit because he can move around, but just drop a ton of people into coverage. And, there's good and bad of that for sure, Court, but I'm expecting them to say, here, try to run the ball on us.
Okay, so knowing that BC is not a run-first team, and they have guys who like to stretch the field, they're throwing deep more than anybody else. In my mind, I have 2 coverages or 2 concepts that I want to run if I'm the defensive coordinator. But I'm going to throw this over to you because you're a coach, you're a player, you've been the quarterback of the defense back there. What are you practicing on day 2 this past week when you're working on second downs? What coverages are you installing and polishing up to make sure that the Ticats are ready for this air attack?
Yeah, good question. This is where I start getting excited to talk about stuff like this. But so we're going something where all the DBs are essentially going to turn their backs to the quarterback. So it's going to be man coverage underneath, right? Everyone's going to say, you know what, I got this guy. Get right up in his face and press him, not let him off the line, slow him down. And they're going to put 2 guys back there, Stavros, and then whoever else wants to show up back there. 2 guys deep to just roam the back. And anybody that wants to throw that ball deep will go pick it off. And if you want to try to throw something a little bit short, I got my DBs right in front of your face, not letting you off the line, getting physical, right? We call that 2-man. where you just got two people high and everybody else is man to man. If he goes and gets a drink on the sideline, you go get a drink with him, right? One of those type of
straws.
Things. Yeah, exactly. So something like that, right? Because it's going to say, hey, you know what, D-line, you go get Vernon Adams, make sure he doesn't get out of there, and we are going to make this very difficult in him passing the game, in the passing game. But that does leave you a little bit susceptible to the run. But I do expect the Ticats defense to do that because they're just too dangerous right now throwing the ball, right? And that's how BC's winning their games. So you got to take away what they're good at.
Yeah, I'd expect to see 2-man on second and medium plus. You also have to let the D-line kill the draw and the QB draw, because QB draw is how you would beat this 2-man. If it's really giving you a headache, you drop back and then you tuck it and VA does his thing. Another type of coverage that I might mix in if I'm really trying to kill the 3 and 4 verticals and those deep crossing routes, I might put us in cover 4 and say, you know what, there's a lot of guys in the deep part of the field. There's a couple guys in the center of the lower part of the field. And I want you as the opposing quarterback to have to find the void that's in the flats. So forcing BC to attack laterally and going short and outside to see how long they can bite their tongue and just take what the defense is giving them before they force it into a coverage. I think mixing in some cover 4s, some 2-man, maybe some matchup zone where you're going, 4-on-3 or 3-on-2. I think those would be some options to give a different look to VA, Vernon Adams, make him think, diagnose, but still make sure that you're doubling deep routes, because that's what we're doing in all of these coverages that we've talked about, is we're finding creative ways to put more than one defender on a vertical receiver. And I think obviously Mark Washington he's a professional defensive coordinator. It's not like we're trying to give him tips, but I think it's cool for the fan to understand the thought process behind why would you call certain plays at a certain time going up against a team that's going to stretch you deep. I think those are 3 great options. So let's talk about the players who are going to be in the spotlight. We talked about Hatcher. I brought up Whitehead. We talked about Duke Williams, Keandre, Terry Godwin. Where is there a matchup on this field that you think has a direct impact on the outcome of this game?
Yeah, and I'm going to go with, 2 people we didn't talk about at all yet, right? And that's Kendrick Sartor, right, the right tackle, but he's going up against a guy on BC named Matthew Betts, right? And right now, Matthew Betts has 11 sacks, and he is just wrecking games, right? He is playing very, very well, and I hope you really liked my French accent because I got that thing down perfectly. Right, with the Mathieu, right? Mathieu.
Yeah, but you had to put some respect on that name. He is a baller. He is a baller.
He's got 11 sacks, and anytime you watch one of these BC games, he is standing out, right? And when you look at the previous game and how much Taylor Powell was getting hit, right? He's now gonna have to. Kendrick Sartor is going to have to hold up against Betts, because you just can't have a game where your quarterback's getting hit that much. He's got to be comfortable in the pocket, be able to stretch it downfield, which is what the Ticats need on offense a little bit, and keep handing the ball to James Butler as much as you can. But at some point, you're going to need to take a couple shots to, like we were talking about, Tim White, Terry Godwin, Duke, those, Keandre Smith, those guys, right? But can't do it unless that pass rush is going to hold up, and just have to get a little bit better in the sack world for this game against BC, and that's where I'm going to be first looking at is try to slow down Betts.
And on that same exact note, who I think has the potential to be an X factor in this game? Another guy whose name I don't even know if we've said it this entire season, Felix Grand Gauthier. Yeah, how was that for an accent?
Yeah, there we go. We got see.
Let's go.
Hey, that's what happens when.
Shout out to the Frenchman.
That's what I mean. When you play with enough of them, you start figuring, okay, this is how I pronounce your names. I got it. I got this down.
That's it. But I think the Ticats got to go 2-back. They got to bring in the fullback. They've got to chip. They got to go at least 60 or 70 for the people who are just getting used to these offensive play calls. There is 5 offensive linemen who are blocking every single play. If I bring an extra receiver, running back, fullback into the box to block, that goes from 50 protection to 60. If I bring a seventh person into the box to block, that goes from 60 to 70 protection. And I think the Ticats got to live in that 60 pro minimum, because 5-on-4 hasn't necessarily been giving Taylor Powell enough time to deliver the ball. Even when they're doing short to intermediate routes, he's been under duress. And, as of late, they gave up a bunch of sacks. Now, that's not always on the offensive line. There's timing of the quarterback not throwing on time. There's sometimes the receivers actually don't get open. So there's a lot of different factors, but you want to give yourself the best chance to keep the quarterback upright. And if it's not there, get a chance to throw the ball away out of bounds. I think that starts with creating a nice, safe pocket with some escape lanes. Have Powell giving him the opportunity to step up into the B gap and maybe escape and maybe extend the play instead of, panicking back, getting slung to the ground. So I think 2-back formations, Felix in the game, and having him chip and block and just earn that paycheck. If not him, then I think maybe even subbing in Richie Sandani, who's a bigger receiver than Keandre, and having him bomber into the box to add as another blocker. I think those will be things to look for as well, because it all starts up front. Whether we're talking about run game or we're talking about the pass game. So that all being said, one last X factor, at like an individual person that you would like to see in this game, or that you think it'd be just interesting to watch.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna go to the backfield to somebody that we were pretty high on. Haven't really mentioned his name a ton, other than kind of the versatility that he has. But Tunde Adeleke.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go 3 for 3 on Frenchman and say Thomas Erlington.
No. I'll leave him up for you. But no, Tunde Adeleke, because what he's going to end up seeing is he's going to end up seeing these receivers we were talking about, right? Keon Hatcher is going to show up there in front of him, and he's playing that field halfback spot, right? And that's a lonely position out there, because there is a lot of field to cover. When you look at all of the defensive backs out there, field halfback has to be the toughest position to play, because there is so much space. You're not really getting a ton of help from your safety until late, because you're so far out, right, on the field side of the field. You may get a little help from your field corner, but he's got his own job to do. And from where the ball is to the sideline is a massive amount of room. So that is where this BC Lions has lived in their offense, is throwing the ball out there, getting those one-on-one matchups, allowing them to run routes any which way because you have enough field. So I'm really looking for Tunde to step up and, make a couple big plays like we all know he can. But I think he's going to get a lot of action, right? Whether it is Keon Hatcher, whether it is Lucky Whitehead that shows up, Katoy, who's, 6'6", like 270. He's huge, right? He's going to get a lot of action out there. So I'm really looking forward to Tunde having a good game. How about you? Who are you looking for?
You know what? I think Stavros has an opportunity again to flash in this one, because to your point, there are key players on this offense for BC who you can probably pull indicators off of. When Katoy and Hatcher are in the same side of the field, maybe there's a certain group of plays that they can run from that personnel grouping and that formation. And I think Stavros, a guy who I think is pretty savvy, knowing when and where to take his chances, where to roll coverage, where to show Vernon Adams that he is, and then vacate and go somewhere else. I think this is a game where he can take those chances, because as great a quarterback as Vernon Adams is, and I give him all of the credit and respect he deserves, because he is one of the better quarterbacks in the league this season, he will throw ill-advised passes, a la their game against Toronto, where Robertson Daniel broke out onto the scene with 3 picks of his own, right? So I think Stavros can capitalize. And then this Ticats D just has to do what they've shown flashes of this year, and that's squeeze the pill. When you get the ball, just don't think about anything else. The ball is the issue. The ball is the number one issue at all times in this game. If you keep that on your mind when it goes up in the sky, just visualize in the park as a young kid playing with your friends, and someone sells 500. You go up and grab that thing, because when you grab the pill on defense, man, you get paid and you get to stay as long as you want. So that's where it all begins. I think it's the deep balls. And tonight, 7 p.m. BC Place, there'll be plenty of them going up. It is the Ticats looking to rebound and get back in the win column against the BC Lions. And of course, if you are not in BC, which if you are, shout out to you for listening to me and Mike. We love you. Make sure you subscribe so you can listen every week. But if you are not in BC, listen.ticats.ca to catch the game, and RJ and Luke will take care of you with the call. So this has been another Tiger Cats Game Day. For Mike Daly, my name is Courtney Stephen, and until next week, have a great game day.
It's game day and you're ready. So are we. Let us know your thoughts. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly are here every game day with their insights into today's game. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.